Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Continuing with our CEO series, today we have President of Adelphi University, Dr. Robert Scott. He is the President of Adelphi University. He's going to talk to us about his leadership and management style for growing the university. Dr. Scott, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. First, I would like to go over your background a little bit. That I know you're the president of Adelphi University and you are on the CEO series of Interviews That Matter. So let's begin with your background. I know you have a pretty colorful background.
Well, I'm not sure how colorful. I was an English major, literature major in college.
Right.
I then went to work in Procter & Gamble in marketing. Then went into the Navy, United States Navy, in cryptography.
Okay.
While I was in the Philippines, I taught English at the University of the Philippines Extension at my base, Subic Bay. And then I came out, didn't know what I wanted to do. I decided not to go back to Procter & Gamble. I decided not to get an MBA. I decided to go to law school. So I went to register at law school because the family idea was that I would go to work at a law firm, actually here on Long Island, Amityville, New York. So I went to register and I said, I don't want to practice law on Long Island. I like the law, but this is not for me. And I turned around and walked away and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I had been asked by my alma mater, my college, Bucknell, to work in the admissions office. So I called them back and asked if the job was still open. So I went to work at Bucknell in admissions for 2 years. I went to Harvard to a special institute to study for part of a year, and then I was recruited to Cornell University, where I was for 13 years, where I became a dean. I taught, finished my PhD, taught, became a dean. I became very interested in state policy. Almost came to work at the State Education Department in New York, but it was such a big bureaucracy. I decided to take a job offer from Indiana, where I became Assistant Commissioner of Higher Education. And then I wanted to come back to be on a campus, and I was very fortunate to serve for 15 years as president of Ramapo College of New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And now for 15 years as president, or almost 15 years, as president of Adelphi University.
Good.
Along the way, I was the non-executive chairman of a publicly traded company located in Colorado. So
Wow.
I've had a diverse background.
Yes, see, that's what I said.
Well, diverse.
Colorful.
Maybe not colorful, but diverse.
Yeah, but you were in, you were a veteran, you were in Navy,
Yeah.
and you still, educator, you're an educator, and you still are an executive, right? So I want to first, since you are an educator, and I want to find out from you your views of education in a role of CEO or a president. What do you think? What is the role of education?
Well, the role of education, of course, education covers what we learn before we go to school, all of our schooling, as well as higher education, higher levels of schooling. So let's focus on college. College is to prepare people to be citizens as well as productive members of the economy and society. So I say that, for example, in Adelphi education is as much about character development and citizenship as it is about careers and commerce.
Okay.
So in my view, we should be preparing people to be of good character, to know values, to be active as citizens, which is why we encourage volunteerism and we talk about the engaged university, being engaged in the community and getting the community engaged on campus, as well as careers in commerce. We create internships, we work with various employers, whether they are for-profit businesses, nonprofit agencies, or government agencies, for our students to get internships, get summer jobs, career jobs. So that's my comprehensive view. Now, there are many other kinds of college educations, and certainly the president of a university that's 40 or 50,000 student in size is going to have a different approach than I would. There are colleges that are much smaller, where the president is an active member of the faculty. I am not able to do that because there's just too much else to do in terms of leadership and management and fundraising. So there are different approaches, but this is my approach.
What is the importance of education? Like, I have seen many successful, very successful businesses, CEOs who are dropouts, college dropouts. Since you are in education, I'm raising this issue.
There are some very high, and have been, some very high profile people who dropped out of college. I mean, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. Those are the exception, as you well know. In most cases, people need the knowledge, skills, abilities, and values that they develop and advance through the college education. There are always the exceptions, and one, I forget the name of the man, I think he's the founder of PayPal, who has a $100,000 prize for students to drop out of college and start a business. I don't think there are many takers. And in fact, I doubt if those who have dropped out and become successful encourage their own children to drop out. It takes an exceptionally motivated person.
So basically, these are like 1 in hundreds of million people.
I don't know what the percentage is, but
I mean, it's you can count on it basically.
There aren't too many. I do have.
There aren't too many.
I have a friend whose son is a student at a university where he is doing so well in computer science and technology that his faculty advisor is encouraging this son of my friend to drop out and start a business. But that's rare.
Is it advisable? I
I
don't think so.
He has, well, one of the beauties of American higher education that is not well understood is that we are a land of second chances. So it's always possible for this young man to drop out. He's got a great advisory board he's already put together, and to start his business. And if he decides to go back, he can go back. I mean, we see that in at Adelphi. We've had professional athletes who had dropped out of college to join the pro ranks, who then come to Adelphi to complete their degree or to get a master's degree.
Now let me come to Adelphi University, that you've been there for almost 15 years, and you have a great successes in terms of increasing the number of students, as well as new programs that you've started. What is the secret of your success? How did you achieve that goal?
Well, in any situation, I think it's very important to know the history and the heritage of an organization or an institution, and to build on that, the principles undergirding that heritage. Adelphi had been through a period of decline. But historically, it was very successful. It was founded first as an academy and then as a college in Brooklyn by leading citizens. And they were abolitionists and suffragists, free thinkers about religion, people who believed in an educated citizenry. They were far in advance of their time in encouraging women to become high school teachers. That was unheard of. And it was that philosophy of encouraging education to improve society that then flourished over the years in developing one of the first baccalaureate programs in nursing, one of the early programs in social work, the first collegiate department of dance, the first university-based clinical psychology program, and on and on. So yes, it had been through this period of decline and turmoil, but I knew that historically it had significant strengths. So the first thing was to inform everyone about the heritage that many people had forgotten because they had been so focused on this period of difficulty. And then to say and I actually went around, I spoke to students, I spoke to faculty groups, alumni groups, staff groups, and asked them, what do you think are the principles undergirding this heritage? And therefore, what are the principles we ought to enunciate for decision making? Then we talked about priorities for action, and the first was enrollment. And I said enrollment is everybody's job if everyone is to have a job. And that's from the receptionists to the public safety officers, admissions, faculty, everybody. We had to be focused on student satisfaction and success. And people understood that, but they'd never been asked. I mean, one of the roles of a leader is to ask questions, because the leader can't know everything.
Right.
And if they act as if they know everything, then no one else is needed. Right? So one of the first things to do is to ask questions and listen. And people have remarkable ideas. So integrity, enrollment, and then to tell the alumni, as well as the people on campus, that we were serious about rebuilding Adelphi. And we wanted their participation and help. We asked alumni to come back to campus to talk to students. We had one of the first people was a CFO of IBM, who then moved on to be CFO of another very large company. And he came to a class to talk to students. And he said, I sat in that chair. And this is the path I took. Well, the students were very excited. The alumnus was delighted to have the opportunity. And then we told other alumni about, his name was Larry, what Larry did. And we would bring alumni back. We'd bring students to the offices of alumni. We then actually created a formal program that we call COACH, Count on Alumni for Career Help. And that was another way to engage alumni. Many people think that a college president's job is all about fundraising, and that all we do is ask alumni for money. That's not true, and it shouldn't be true. We ask alumni to help bring their professional experience to campus so students can say, oh, she went here, I could do that. Or I never thought I could do that, but I think I can. Or we bring students to the offices of alumni. We ask alumni to help us recruit students. Would you hold a reception in your home for the students from South Jersey who are interested in Adelphi? May we publish your profile so that other alumni can see, gee, look at these successful alumni. This is a pretty good place. I remember it was a good place. I haven't been in touch. And then, of course, we also go around the country to visit pockets of alumni. We've got about 7,000 in Florida, so we'll go on the East Coast and the West Coast. We've got about 2,000 in Los Angeles, but most are in the New York metropolitan area. So alumni were very important in this. And then we engaged a consulting group, small group, to ask people questions that I thought they might not answer honestly to me as the president. And I learned amazing things. In my first fall, I remember I was told students aren't allowed to play frisbee on the lawn. I said, why not? Well, the lawn will get torn up. I said, you know what? If the students can't have fun on campus, they're not going to stay.
Right.
The other thing I did in my first semester was to enroll as a freshman in a freshman seminar. And I told the professor, look, don't make a fuss about me being the president. I just want to sit with this group of 18 students and see what it's like. And in one class session, we had a graduate student who was leading an exercise in small groups. And when there was a little bit of a break, I asked the student next to me, how do you spend your day? Where do you hang your hat? Where do you put your books? What do you do between class? And she said, well, I go to my Volvo. I said, what do you mean? Well, the trunk of my Volvo is my closet. After class, I called the vice president for facilities to say, Bill, how many lockers do we have on campus for, at that time, 5,400 students who commuted? And I took them around campus. We went on a tour, and we located all the places we should put lockers. And we built locker rooms, we built lounges, so that people had a place to study and relax.
Right. So basically you kind of took the assets of the prior years and then tried to capitalize on it and by developing a culture. And that's what your leadership style is, as I take it?
Yes, culture is essential. There's a famous, I forget which one, it might, well, doesn't make any difference what his name is. There's a very famous professor of strategy, I think he's at McGill University, who said, culture eats strategy. That if you don't understand the culture, your strategy is not going to work because you can't impose it. So culture is essential to understand it because you can only make change and evolve or make more dramatic change if you understand the points of leverage that exist in that culture, or to hearken back to earlier periods in history to say, for example, I've said to the faculty, look at what the faculty did in 1938 in creating a new set of programs in response to really the war. We did it then, we can do it again. We can create new programs. So to help people sort of refer to history as a way to help people think about the future.
What is your management style?
Well, there's an old cliche about management by walking around. I guess that's my style. I walk around, I ask questions. I meet with students and faculty and staff throughout the year in formal groups as well as informally, and I typically ask, what is going well? What do you like? What do you wish we had changed last week? And I learn a lot. Then I write up my notes and send them to the vice presidents and ask, why didn't I know about this? Why do we do this, or why don't we do that? So a lot of walking around and watching and listening. And I've always found that it's very important to do that in times of tension. We haven't had a lot of tension at Adelphi, but in my previous presidency, there was a period with a lot of tension, and I always found it useful and important to sort of walk into the lion's den. If people are upset about something, go walk in and ask them. I've done it on campus. We had in one of our academic programs, we had some controversy, and I just got up out of my desk and chair and walked over to that academic unit and walked in on the meeting and said, tell me what's going on. So you can't wait for people to come. And then sometimes I have done the following. I have known about some tension or controversy involving a faculty member, for example. And I'll call them up and say, why don't we have a cup of coffee? And I won't ask about the controversy, because that's not the purpose. The purpose is to get the person to talk.
Right.
How are things going?
Right.
What's your research? How are your classes? Is there anything I ought to know about to be helpful? And then they open up.
So it's kind of a smooth approach, basically, not attack.
Well, no, it doesn't help to attack. Usually. I mean, there are times when we have an encounter with someone who is a bully or especially aggressive, and you have to talk back in kind to get back to an even playing field. So I'm not loath to do that, but I don't start that way.
The whatever attributes and the techniques that you have mentioned about your style of management and leadership applies to most of the businesses. Whether I have a small business of whatever it is, technology, or it could be commodity, or it could be distribution, anything. But similar principles we can apply to any business.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
And is there any, like, do you think any difference in between? Like, for example, you say that, you meet everybody, which is true in any business, kind of, and you get ideas from anywhere, you never know.
Well, there are definitely a lot of similarities. I mean, I learned the lesson about, really about listening years and years ago. I was a fan of a magazine, no longer exists, called the Saturday Review. And the publisher, I think his name was Norman Cousins. I read once that every night before he went home, he called a subscriber to ask about their view of the magazine and what topics were covered. I thought, what a great idea. And at the time, I was a consultant to the Curtis Publishing Company, and as a consultant, executive publisher of a magazine. And so I started doing that. I'd call an advertiser, I'd call a subscriber. And then when I came to campus, to Ramapo College at first, and then again at Adelphi, I began calling employers and school superintendents and talking to them, say, how are we doing? How are our graduates doing? And so I learned a lot from that. And I think that can apply to any enterprise. What's different about, I think, different about a university is that the expectations of stockholders or stakeholders to have an important say is very different. Alumni believe that they should have a major say in the running of the university. Faculty believe that they should have a major say in the running of the university. Students believe it and have gone on strike or taken over buildings to emphasize that they have a stake in it. Parents who are paying the bill are a very important constituency. And then, of course, the Board of Trustees. And then there's the local community, which controls zoning and approvals for construction. They believe, through the neighbors, that they have an important say. So there aren't There's some overlap with other businesses, certainly in terms of zoning.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of employees,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the similarity would be to physicians in a hospital
Mm-hmm.
for the faculty. But even there, the patients don't have the same kind of stake that students do. So those are differences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the first initiatives at Adelphi was to assess the physical plant
Mm-hmm.
as well as the curriculum. And so two of the areas that I'm especially pleased with
Mm-hmm.
are the academic programs and the focus on quality, the improvement. Every academic program gets reviewed by outside reviewers on a regular schedule.
Mm-hmm.
We then implement the recommendations and follow up
Mm-hmm.
to assess. We created new programs.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Community Fellows Program of internships for nonprofit organizations, which I started at the depth of the economic turmoil when nonprofit groups were having trouble keeping staff and paying staff. Our students were having trouble getting jobs. And so we raised money to provide stipends to students, and then we prepared them to help out in nonprofit groups.
Mm-hmm.
And that has grown dramatically. We created the Livermore Global Scholars Program, which builds on sort of world affairs and local volunteerism. And many other academic programs, including now a number of programs offered online, graduate programs offered online.
Mm-hmm.
So the academic dimensions of Adelphi and the quality are greatly improved and significantly expanded.
Mm-hmm.
To support that academic growth, we had to build new facilities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I came in the year 2000, we had not had any new construction, I think, for 36 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last 14 years, we have, well, by this September, we will have completely renovated or completely constructed 600,000 square feet of space at a cost of about about $350 million.
Mm-hmm.
But we have very little debt because I don't like debt. And our endowment has more than tripled. So academically, in terms of facilities and fiscally, we are in very, very strong shape.
So the $350 million expansion, the money has to come from somewhere. Is that like in any business, the context are the key part of any business, whether it's education or products or services. So how did you manage to achieve that goal? Like I know that enrollment has gone up, so therefore that income would be coming in.
Right.
At the same time, that's not enough to do all these things.
No, there are three or four pillars. Certainly fundraising,
Okay.
some debt, we do borrow, savings, because even though we are non-profit, we have to make a profit every year. We have to have a surplus. And then appreciation and growth in endowment earnings. So those are the four ways. But I should add a fifth. We have also benefited from some state grants.
That's what I was going to say, right? Yeah. And
maybe a total of $7 million out of $350 million actually came from the state.
Oh, so all the other money you got it from other four
sources,
pillars,
right?
other sources, and that's quite a remarkable achievement. I mean, that's not easy.
Well, we
And
we
you didn't
pay
know
attention.
You didn't know anybody before, obviously, before you came to Adelphi,
No.
right? So you build relationship and you managed to ask, or get money.
Right. Well, we're very, as I say, I don't like debt. We are very fiscally conservative. In fact, in what was it, the fall of 2008,
Right,
the height of the fiscal crisis,
right.
our bond rating was upgraded by Standard & Poor's. And at first I said, hooray! And then I said, Standard & Poor's, what do they know? Because they were being criticized for their rating, but we have sustained their upgraded rating.
What is, what is your philosophy on community connections or connecting communities?
Well, the way I think about my philosophy is that we're as much about character and citizenship as about careers and commerce. I believe that being active in the community is very important.
Okay.
I've always believed that, but it was reinforced when I first came. In the first fall, I visited a leader on Long Island of one of the big organizations and asked him about higher education on Long Island and how he viewed the institutions. And he said, oh, they're all aloof. They're like ivory towers. And I said, well, that's not my philosophy. We are going to be the engaged university. We are going to serve the region, not to the exclusion. We have students from, in any year, 40 to 45 other states and about 60 countries. So it's not that we're going to be parochial,
Right.
but we're going to serve our backyard. And so community engagement is essential.
Alumni. You've been very active with the alumni of Adelphi University, and that has helped also at the university. Now, when I say alumni, means since this is a CEO series, I would consider alumni as a prior customer.
Absolutely. Well,
so let's talk
not
about
just prior customer, but yeah, okay, prior customer with a continuing relationship.
right
And in fact, for example, when
bonding. Link is there, but link is weak. And how do you get engaged?
when
them
we
again?
need to make it, for example, people talk about starting online programs,
Right,
distance education.
right.
And I say, we have 100,000 alumni. They all have an affiliation with the university.
Right.
Many of them are required to have continuing professional education.
Right.
Why don't we provide it? So how can we provide services to the alumni? And we have just an amazing group. The novelist Alice Hoffman is an alumna. I just had an exchange with her yesterday. Tom Donahue, the CEO of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, is an alumnus. The late John Phelan, who was the president of the New York Stock Exchange on October 19th, 1987, when I think it was President Reagan or Ford, wanted to close the stock market because of the economic downturn, and he said no, and we'll keep going. Dramatic leader. The heads of major charitable organizations, hospitals, major researchers, former the physician to the president, who traveled over 80 countries with President Clinton, as an alumnus. I can go on and on. Al Troutwig, who broadcasts from Madison Square Garden, Adelphi alumnus.
Wow.
Just an amazing group of people. The woman who started the hedge fund business for Goldman Sachs, an alumnus. On and on. One of the major caterers in the whole New York metropolitan area is an alumna. A man who, a man, his wife, and brother, all alumni, own some of the most prestigious restaurants in New York City.
So, I want to ask you one question now. This is, let's say you rewind back to 2000 and you just entered institution, Adelphi University, if you would have to do all over again, what you would have done different? And you got great results. What you could have done different? Do you think of anything which can bring even a better result?
Well, it's important to recognize that when I came in July of 2000, I was the 6th president in 3.5 years.
Oh, okay.
When I was introduced to the campus community, there were 2 questions. Would I stay and would I live in the house? Because the previous presidents had not lived in the president's house, which is on campus. So it was a place of anxiety.
Right.
In addition, 2 of the previous presidents of the 4 in between the one who was fired and my arrival, 2 of those had undertaken major efforts to develop strategic plans. Those plans were actually not strategic, they were volumes with lots of recommendations and very little way to follow up on the recommendations. So I knew right away that I was not going to undertake a strategic planning exercise of that type, and so I did what I described earlier. What are the principles for decision making? What can we take from our heritage? And then what are the priorities for action in terms of program quality, new programs, enrollment, and I have a philosophy about enrollment. So as I look back, I wish we had started building the alumni base sooner. We had some turnover. I had to fire a vice president, and we had another turnover in that office. So we weren't as settled as we should have been, or might have been, but just the wrong person was there, and then we didn't make a good hire, and then somebody left that I recruited back. I wish we had started earlier. We had a fundraising consultant who, much to my horror, said out loud to the Board of Trustees that we should set a goal of $35 million for our first ever comprehensive campaign. We needed $500 million. I knew we couldn't do that. But I had calculated with the vice president. I said, we should set a goal of $56 million, and here's why. But the consultant told the board we ought to do $35 million. I said, no, I disagree, and here's why. And so we set the goal for $56 million, and we exceeded that by $2.5 million, got to $58.5. But I wish we had started that earlier. We had to build a board. I mean, we did our first alumnus, living $1 million donor, didn't exist until I think 2008.
Wow.
But we had to work with that person, cultivate his interest.
Right.
The first $1 million donor was Horace Hagedorn.
Oh, okay.
And that was in, I guess, 2005, maybe. But I had only met him 2 years before. We need a much larger endowment. Our endowment is now about $175 million. When I came, it was $48 million. But we need at least $100 million more to be at the average of S&P rated, A-rated institutions. And so that's one of our goals now, is to increase the endowment for student scholarships. I mean, student scholarships are essential. People think of Adelphi as this high-quality, private university. You know that 25% of our students come from families who earn less than $30,000 a year. 25%.
Wow.
44% come from families who earn less than $60,000 a year. So financial aid, scholarships is very important. We try to keep our tuition moderate, and we're 25% less than our major competitors in the region. But even at that, we just need more for expendable and endowed scholarships.
What would be your advice for a new startup CEO? Somebody who wants to start a business, what would you advise that person or from the viewers?
I guess the first piece, what I came to my mind first, and what I guess I will now say first, is to seek advisors.
Seek advisors.
Yeah. People, maybe not a formal board of directors, but people who have maturity and experience, with whom the new CEO or the startup CEO can discuss goals and strategy. Experience counts. And I think that's true for college presidents or CEOs or startup entrepreneurs. Enthusiasm counts for an awful lot, but the other E, experience, counts for a lot too.
So mentor, basically. Find a mentor.
Well, that's one way of putting it. I'm not sure I would, because I have a different view of what a mentor is. But anyway, expert advice.
Expert advice, right.
But yeah, mentor. One of the things I did when I became president of Ramapo College, I mean, as a president, I work with a board of trustees.
Right, right.
And I wanted a group to be my advisors outside of the board.
Okay.
And I asked 4 people. One was a very well-connected political person who was a property developer. One was a merchant, owned jewelry stores. Another was an accountant. And another was a CFO at a major company. And I would meet with them to try out ideas and ask advice.
So different from your industry.
Pardon me?
Different people from your
Oh,
industry.
absolutely. No, they were not educators.
Exactly, right.
And so I had asked them
you
advice.
get a different perspective.
And I think that's what an entrepreneur with a new idea or a new company or startup might do, is to, now in that case you might want to get people who are familiar with the industry.
Right, right.
But that kind of advice, I know several people now who are starting nonprofit organizations. They're social entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And I'm providing advice to them about their goals and strategies, their tactics, how to organize a board, what some of the legal requirements are for that, state requirements, how to get a 501c3, that is to say their tax exempt status.
Right, right.
And they are, one has to do with poverty in Uganda, and another has to do with providing opportunities for students or young people in places like Haiti. And my wife and I are helping these.
Good.
So they're social entrepreneurs.
It's a good cause.
Yeah.
Very good cause. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr.
Thank
Scott.
you very
Appreciate
much.
it, really. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. That's again rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/Infosys International. That's again youtube.com/Infosys International. We'll continue with our CEO series next week. Until then, have a great week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.